The alert came during the quiet hours of the night shift. Captain of the exploration vessel Silent Wind stared at his display screen with growing concern. His long ears twitched, a sign of unease among his people. "Unknown vessel detected," the computer announced in its calm voice. "Distance 40,000 kilometers, configuration unknown, status adrift." Leaned forward in his command chair. His gray fur bristled slightly as he studied the readings. The ship was tumbling slowly through space, clearly damaged. Parts of its hull were torn open. Debris floated around it like a cloud of metal insects. "Run a classification scan," ordered. His second officer, a younger named, worked at his station. His claws clicked against the controls. After a moment, he looked up with wide eyes. "Sir, the computer identifies it as a Class 3 vessel." The bridge went quiet. Every crew member turned to look at. Class 3 vessels were rare in this sector. They came from planets so dangerous that most civilized species considered them uninhabitable. The creatures that evolved on such worlds were often terrifyingly strong, fast, or aggressive. "Life signs?" asked, keeping his voice steady. "None detected, sir. The ship appears abandoned." Drummed his claws on his armrest. Protocol was clear. Vessels should be reported to Federation authorities and avoided, but something about this situation felt different. The ship was heavily damaged but not destroyed. Someone had tried to save it. "Can you read the ship's designation?" he asked. Adjusted his sensors. "Yes, sir, the name reads Harrison. Registry markers indicate it's from Earth." Earth, repeated slowly. He knew little about Earth. It was a recently discovered world on the far edge of explored space. The Federation had made limited contact with its people. They called themselves humans. Reports described them as curious and energetic, but details were scarce. "I want to board that vessel," announced. His ears flattened against his head, a sign of alarm. "Sir, with respect, that's extremely dangerous. We don't know what killed the crew. It could be a disease, radiation, or something worse." "The crew is dead. Whatever killed them is likely long gone," stood up. "But their ship's data might tell us what happened. We could learn valuable information about this species and this region of space." He walked to the communication panel. "Report to Airlock 3. We're conducting a boarding operation. Bring scanning equipment and hazard suits." 20 minutes later, stood in the airlock with his team. Was a specialist in alien life forms. Her blue skin seemed to glow slightly in the harsh lights. Was their chief engineer, a four-armed whose people were known for their technical skills. "Remember," said as they checked their suits, "we don't touch anything we don't need to. We scan, we record, we leave. Understand?" They both signaled agreement. The Silent Wind moved closer to the Harrison. The damaged human ship grew larger in the viewport. Up close, the destruction was worse than the sensors had shown. Long black scorch marks covered the hull. Several sections were completely torn open, exposing twisted metal and frozen interior spaces to the vacuum. "Whatever happened here," muttered, "it was catastrophic." Their shuttle detached from the Silent Wind and approached the Harrison carefully. They found an airlock that still had power, connected a portable generator and forced the outer door open. The airlock cycled. The inner door slid open with a grinding sound. They stepped into darkness. Activated his suit lights. The beams cut through the gloom, revealing a corridor that had seen better days. Panels hung from the ceiling. Wires dangled like dead vines. Dark stains covered the walls. "Those stains," said quietly, scanning them. "They're biological, human blood." They moved deeper into the ship. Every room told a story of disaster. The crew had fought hard to survive. Emergency patches covered hull breaches. Makeshift repairs held critical systems together. But everywhere they looked, they saw signs of failure and desperation. They reached what appeared to be a central computer core, examined it carefully. "This is remarkable," she said. "The ship is nearly destroyed, but someone protected this core. They wrapped it in emergency shielding. They wanted the data to survive even if they didn't." "Can you access it?" asked. "Give me a moment." Connected her portable computer to the human system. Lines of alien text scrolled across her screen. After several minutes of work, she nodded. "I'm in. The core is intact. I'm pulling up crew logs now." "Start with the most recent," ordered. Screen flickered. Then a three-dimensional image appeared above her device. It showed a human male in a tattered uniform. His face was dirty, covered in soot and minor cuts. His hair stuck up at odd angles, but what startled most was his expression. The human was smiling. "Day 47 of what I'm calling the galaxy's worst camping trip," the human said. His voice was rough but cheerful. Then he laughed, a sound that echoed strangely in the dead ship. "The reactors held together with Prayer and Danny's terrible welding. We're eating ration paste that expired 2 years ago, and Karen just bet me 20 credits that the port thruster falls off before the starboard one. I'm taking that bet." The recording ended. The three aliens stared at each other in confusion. "He was laughing," said over the communication link from the silent wind. Why was he laughing? Felt a chill run through him despite his heated suit. "Pull up more logs. I need to understand what happened to these creatures." "Which ones, sir?" "All of them." They moved to the ship's mess hall, the only room with enough intact furniture to work in. Set up her equipment on a table that was bolted to the floor. Began examining the ship's systems, trying to piece together what had failed and when. Watched as more recordings appeared. Different humans, all showing signs of injury and exhaustion. All smiling, joking, laughing. One human female, identified as a medical officer, stitched a wound on another crew member's arm while they both laughed about something. "This doesn't make sense," whispered. "Their ship is dying, they're dying, why aren't they afraid?" Didn't have an answer. He had studied many species during his long career. He had ordered his crew to set up a temporary base in the Harrison's mess hall. They brought in additional power cells and scanning equipment from the silent wind. Whatever had happened on this ship, he intended to understand it completely. The mess hall was in poor condition but still pressurized. Someone had welded patches over several cracks in the walls. The furniture was bolted down, standard for spacecraft, but many chairs were missing. They had probably been broken up for parts or materials. The humans had been desperate. Pulled up the ship's main database. "I have the crew manifest, Captain. 12 humans total. They were on a deep space survey mission, mapping this sector for potential resources and habitable worlds." 12, repeated, such a small crew for such a large ship. Vessels of similar size carried at least 40 crew members. What happened to them? "I'm piecing it together from the logs and sensor data. 3 months into their mission, they encountered a spatial anomaly. The ship's records describe it as a temporary rift in normal space. They couldn't avoid it in time." Walked over from where he had been examining the ship's systems. His 4 arms gestured at a display showing the Harrison's layout. The anomaly did massive damage. It ripped through the hull in multiple locations. The main engines failed completely. The power core nearly breached. It's amazing the ship held together at all. "Show me the crew logs from that day," said. A new recording appeared. This one showed a human male wearing an engineer's uniform. His name tag read Danny. His face was streaked with grease and what looked like burn marks. Behind him, alarms were blaring. "Well, the good news is we're not dead," Danny said to the camera. He was grinning despite the chaos visible behind him. "The bad news is pretty much everything else. The engines are gone, life support is failing, and I'm pretty sure the coffee machine is broken, which honestly might be the worst part." He laughed, then coughed. "Captain says I need to document the damage. Here goes. Primary power core is at 20% and dropping. Hull breaches in sections 4, 7, and 9. Main engines are completely destroyed. Backup engines are damaged beyond repair. Navigation is offline. Communications array is gone. And we're currently drifting at .03 light speed in a completely random direction." Danny leaned closer to the camera. "But hey, we're alive, we're breathing, and I found half a chocolate bar in my locker. Could be worse." The recording ended. His voice came through the communication link. "He's joking about imminent death. This isn't natural behavior. Captain, I think the humans might have been suffering from some kind of mental breakdown." But shook her head. "I'm analyzing their physical conditions from the recordings. They show signs of stress and exhaustion, but their cognitive functions appear normal. They're speaking clearly, moving with purpose, and their eyes track properly. This isn't madness." "Then what is it?" asked. More recordings played. They watched as the human crew assessed their situation over the following days. A woman named Lisa Hayes, the medical officer, recorded herself treating various injuries. She spoke calmly about broken bones, burns, and radiation exposure, yet she smiled while working. "Jake's going to be fine," she said in one log, wrapping bandages around another crew member's ribs. 3 cracked ribs, minor concussion, and he somehow managed to cut his hand on a door panel, which is impressive considering doors aren't supposed to have sharp edges. She laughed. But he'll heal. We all will. We're tough. Another human, Chris Walker, appeared in pilot logs. He explained their navigation problem while maintaining a cheerful tone. We have no idea where we are. The stellar maps don't match anything in our database. We're probably several hundred light years off course. The good news is we're definitely exploring new territory now. The bad news is nobody knows we're here. He paused, then added with a grin, on the bright side, I finally get to use that survival training Earth fleet made us do. Remember that week in the Arctic? This is exactly like that, except in space. And with more hull breaches, and no rescue team. Okay, it's nothing like that, but I'm staying positive. Found himself drawn into these strange recordings. The humans faced disaster after disaster, yet they never stopped. They worked constantly, repairing damage, rerouting power, searching for solutions. And through it all, they laughed. A recording from the Captain Porter showed leadership under impossible pressure. He was tall for a human with graying hair and tired eyes, but his voice remained steady. Log entry, day 15 after the anomaly. We've stabilized life support in the main sections of the ship. Danny performed a miracle getting the backup power core online. We have heat, air, and water for now. Food supplies are adequate for approximately 4 months if we ration carefully. Porter rubbed his face. I won't lie to the camera, our situation is critical. We're stranded in unknown space with no way to call for help. Our engines are destroyed, we're drifting, but my crew hasn't given up. They're working around the clock to keep us alive, and somehow they're still finding reasons to smile. He leaned back in his chair. I think that's the most human thing about us. We look at impossible odds and we laugh, not because we're ignorant of the danger, not because we're crazy, but because laughter is how we tell the universe we're not beaten yet. Played more logs and a pattern emerged. The humans had organized themselves efficiently. They established work schedules, assigned repair priorities, and monitored their dwindling resources carefully. This wasn't a crew falling apart. This was a crew fighting to survive. But what fascinated most was how they maintained morale. In one recording, several crew members sat around a table in this very mess hall. They were eating gray paste from containers, clearly terrible food. Yet they were laughing about something. Okay, a woman named Amy said. Worst case scenario. The artificial gravity fails, but only in the bathroom. The others erupted in laughter. Another crew member, identified as Price, added, or the food synthesizer starts working again, but it only makes Brussels sprouts. More laughter. They went around the table, each suggesting increasingly absurd disasters. The game seemed designed to make their real problems seem less frightening by comparison. This is their survival strategy, said with wonder in her voice. They're using humor as a psychological tool. By laughing at imaginary disasters, they're reducing fear of the real ones. Had been quiet studying the engineering logs. Now he spoke up. Captain, you need to see this. The repairs they made to this ship are remarkable. Look at this. He displayed a schematic. They had no replacement parts, no proper tools. They salvaged materials from destroyed sections and fabricated new components by hand. This power coupling here, they made it from pieces of their own furniture. This pressure seal, that's a piece of their cargo containers melted down and reformed. The engineer's voice filled with respect. They kept this ship running through creativity and desperation. Any other species would have died in the first week. But these humans just kept working and laughing and refusing to quit. Studied the logs for hours. He watched humans struggle with failing systems. He saw them grow thinner as food ran low. He observed their exhaustion as they worked endless shifts, but he never saw them give up hope. In one particularly striking recording, Danny the engineer sat in front of a sparking control panel. He was covered in burns from an electrical fire. His hands shook with exhaustion, but he was smiling. Had been aboard the Harrison for 8 hours. In that time, he had reviewed dozens of crew logs. Each one revealed more about these remarkable humans, but he still didn't fully understand them. Captain called out, I found something interesting. The communications officer, Amy, maintained detailed personal logs about crew morale. You should see this. A new recording appeared. Amy sat at her station, surrounded by dark screens. Most of her equipment was dead. She looked tired but alert. Personal log, Amy, day 42. I'm supposed to monitor communications, but there's nothing to monitor anymore. So instead, I've been watching my crew mates, studying how they cope. She pulled out a small notebook, the paper kind, and flipped through pages. I started a game 3 weeks ago. I call it the worst-case scenario competition. Every meal, we go around and describe increasingly ridiculous disasters that could still happen to us. The person who makes everyone else laugh the hardest gets an extra dessert ration. Amy smiled at the camera. Captain Porter thinks I'm wasting time. But yesterday, after Jake won with his scenario about the recycling system becoming sentient and judgmental, I watched our stress indicators drop by 15%. Laughter is medicine. It's keeping us functional when we should be falling apart. She closed the notebook. Earth taught us to laugh at danger. Our planet tried to kill us for millions of years. Storms, earthquakes, predators, diseases, everything wanted us dead. So we learned to look at death and tell jokes. It's not bravery, it's spite. We refuse to give the universe the satisfaction of seeing us scared. The recording ended, felt something shift in his understanding. These humans weren't just using humor randomly. They were weaponizing it against despair. Another log appeared automatically. This one showed Price, the science officer. He sat in what looked like the medical bay, recording notes. Scientific observation log. I'm monitoring the psychological effects of our situation on the crew. Standard stress response would predict that by day 40, we should be seeing signs of severe depression, anxiety attacks, and potential violence between crew members. Pulled up data on a small screen. But that's not happening. We're tired. We're scared, but we're not breaking down. I think it's because Captain Porter deliberately encourages absurd humor before every serious meeting. He makes us laugh first, then we tackle problems. He leaned forward, speaking directly to the camera. There's actual science behind this. Laughter reduces cortisol levels. It improves cognitive function. It strengthens social bonds. The captain probably doesn't know the biological details, but he understands it instinctively. He's keeping us alive by keeping us laughing. Had been exploring other sections of the ship. He returned to the mess hall with a curious expression. Captain, you need to see what I found in the cargo bay. They followed him through damaged corridors to a large open space. The cargo bay was mostly empty now, but one corner had been converted into something unexpected. Someone had set up a small stage area using crates. Lights made from salvaged equipment hung from the ceiling. A sign made from sheet metal read, Harrison Comedy Hour. They put on shows, explained. I found a recording device still running. Watch this. He activated a holographic display. It showed several humans gathered in front of the makeshift stage. Danny stood center stage, holding a broken tool like a microphone. So the captain says to me, he says, Danny, can you fix the engines? And I say, sure, Captain, no problem. Just give me a week, a full engineering team, a complete parts inventory, and a working shipyard. The audience laughed. He says, you've got 3 hours, a welding torch, and whatever you can pull out of the recycling system. And I think, well, at least he's realistic about the time frame. More laughter. The scene was surreal. These humans were dying slowly in a crippled ship, yet they found time for entertainment. Another human took the stage, Lisa Hayes, the medical officer. You know what I love about space medicine? The challenges. Like yesterday, Jake comes in with a weird rash. On Earth, I'd run tests, consult specialists, maybe prescribe something. Here, I've got a bandage, some expired pain medication, and a really optimistic attitude. I told him it was space acne and to wash his face more. He believed me. The crew roared with laughter. Jake, sitting in the audience, laughed loudest of all. Watched the entire recording. An hour of humans making jokes about their terrible situation. An hour of laughter in the face of certain death. When it ended, he stood in silence. They're not just surviving, said quietly. They're living. Even here, even now, they're creating culture and community. I've never seen anything like it. They returned to the mess hall and continued reviewing logs. One recording showed First Officer Santos organizing work schedules. She explained their system with casual efficiency. We work in 4-hour shifts. That keeps everyone fresh enough to stay alert. Between shifts, Captain Porter mandates at least 1 hour of what he calls mandatory fun time. We eat together, talk, play games, tell stories. Anything to keep us human. Look directly at the camera. Some people might think that's wasteful. We're in a survival situation. Every minute should be spent on repairs, right? Wrong. We're not machines. If we only work and sleep, we'll lose ourselves. The mandatory fun time isn't optional, it's as critical as oxygen. Another log showed Chris Walker teaching other crew members a card game from his childhood. They sat around a table, dealing cards made from cut-up supply containers. Real cards had been sacrificed for more important materials. Okay, so the goal is to get rid of all your cards first, Chris explained. But here's the twist. Every time you play a 7, everyone has to pass one card to the person on their left. Every time you play a jack, the direction reverses, and if you play a queen, you get to pick someone to trade hands with. That's the most complicated card game I've ever heard, Jake complained, but he was smiling. That's because I'm making up new rules as we go, Chris admitted. Yesterday, the rules were completely different. Tomorrow, they'll change again, keeps things interesting. They played for an hour, laughing at the chaos of constantly changing rules. It was absurd and pointless and exactly what they needed. Discovered logs showing elaborate pranks the crew played on each other. When food supplies ran critically low, they held a cooking competition with expired rations. Each person had to create a meal from the terrible paste and present it to judges with dramatic flair. I call this dish Desperation Surprise, Jake announced in the recording, presenting a bowl of gray paste with some green powder sprinkled on top. The surprise is that you're desperate enough to eat it. The judges, Captain Porter and Lisa Hayes, tasted it with exaggerated seriousness. I detect notes of cardboard and regret, Porter said, trying not to smile. With a subtle finish of please let this be over, Lisa added. Everyone watching burst into laughter. Even Jake, whose cooking was being mocked, laughed hardest of all. More logs revealed the depth of Danny's engineering genius. While joking about percussive maintenance and aggressive negotiations with machinery, he performed miracle after miracle. He rerouted power systems in ways the designers never intended. He fabricated replacement parts from salvaged materials. He kept the ship running through disasters that should have been fatal. In one recording, he explained his philosophy while covered in grease and working on a sparking panel. People think engineering is about making things work perfectly. It's not. It's about making things work at all. This power relay, it's supposed to handle 10,000 units of energy. I've got it pushing 15,000. It's screaming at me in electrical fire language, but it's doing the job. He patted the smoking panel affectionately. You beautiful disaster, you magnificent nightmare. Keep going for just one more day. That's all I ask. One more day. As reviewed more logs, he began to see the pattern clearly. Every laugh was an act of the timestamp on the next log made pause. Day 87. The humans had survived nearly 3 months against impossible odds, but the next series of recordings showed their luck finally running out. Captain's log, Day 87. Porter looked worse than in any previous recording. His face was gaunt from malnutrition. Dark circles surrounded his eyes, but his voice remained steady. We've encountered a micrometeor storm. Sensors detected it too late. The ship has taken catastrophic damage. He pulled up a damage report. Hull breaches in 6 sections. Life support failure in the engine room and cargo bay. Multiple casualties. The remaining pressurized areas are losing atmosphere. Danny estimates we have 6 hours of breathable air remaining. Porter closed his eyes for a moment. When he opened them again, they were wet. I failed them. I promised to get my crew home. I promised their families I'd bring them back, and I failed. The recording ended. Made a soft sound of distress. Even listening from the silent wind remained silent. They all knew what came next. The next log showed the crew gathered in the mess hall. All 12 humans crammed into the one remaining fully pressurized space. They looked terrible. Thin, exhausted, injured. Some had blood-stained bandages, others had burns from electrical fires. All of them knew they were about to die. For the first time in all the recordings, no one was smiling. Captain Porter stood before them. I'm not going to lie to you, we're out of options. The hull damage is too extensive. Life support can't be repaired. We have perhaps 6 hours of oxygen left. He looked at each face. You all deserve better than this. You deserve to see your families again. You deserve to walk on solid ground under a real sun. You deserved long lives full of everything you dreamed of. I'm sorry I couldn't give you that. Jake spoke up from the back. Captain, none of this was your fault. He's right, added. We all knew the risks when we signed up for deep space exploration. We just had worse luck than most. Porter nodded slowly. Thank you, that means more than you know. He took a breath. I'm giving you all a choice. We can spend these last hours recording messages for our families, or we can spend them together. It's up to you. The crew looked at each other. No one spoke for a long moment, then Chris stood up. I vote we spend them together, he said. My family knows I loved them. They don't need to see me like this. I'd rather be here with all of you. One by one, the others agreed. They would face the end together. What happened next left the alien observers stunned into silence. The humans didn't spend their final hours in grief. They told stories. Lisa shared memories of growing up in Colorado, describing mountains and forests to crew members who had never seen them. Danny talked about his grandmother's cooking, making everyone hungry with descriptions of real food. Amy taught them a complicated song from her childhood. They sang together badly, laughing at the wrong notes and forgotten lyrics. Their voices echoed through the dying ship. Jake and Danny staged a mock argument that had everyone in tears from laughter. They debated whose fault the disaster was, each claiming increasingly ridiculous responsibility. I sneezed near a critical relay, Danny insisted with complete seriousness. That's obviously what caused the cascade failure. No, I looked at the engine funny, Jake countered. I gave it a judgmental stare. Engines are sensitive about that. I forgot to say good morning to the ship's computer, Chris added. Hurt its feelings. I wore mismatched socks on day one, Lisa confessed. Clearly cursed the entire mission. Even Captain Porter joined in. I once had a negative thought about the coffee machine. Obviously, that's what doomed us. The entire crew dissolved into laughter. It was absurd and wonderful and heartbreaking. As the hours passed and oxygen levels dropped, the humans began showing signs of hypoxia. Their movements became slower. Their words came with more effort, but they kept talking, kept laughing, kept refusing to let fear win. Started a game where everyone shared what they would do first if somehow, impossibly, they were rescued. The suggestions became more outrageous as their brains struggled with decreasing oxygen. I'm going to fight Jake declared. The others laughed because we're peaceful herbivores known for avoiding conflict. I'm going to eat an entire cow, Amy said. A whole cow by myself. I'm going to sleep for 3 years straight, added, her words slurring slightly. I'm going to marry a dolphin, Chris announced, making no sense at all. Everyone laughed anyway. They went around the circle, each suggestion more absurd than the last. Their laughter became quieter, more labored, but it never stopped. Watched with tears running down his fur, he had seen many species face death. He had studied countless final moments, but he had never seen anything like this. These humans were dying and they were laughing. The final log began to record automatically as oxygen levels reached critical levels. The crew was barely conscious. They lay slumped against each other, a pile of dying humans who refused to die alone. Captain Porter, using what must have been his last strength, dragged himself to a control panel. His hands shook as he activated the emergency beacon. They had saved it, hoping for a miracle. Now, in their final moments, he sent it out into the void. To whoever finds this ship, Porter said, his words barely a whisper. The recording barely picked up his voice. Tell Earth that the Harrison's crew died doing what humans do best. We laughed at the universe's attempts to scare us. He paused, gasping for breath. We weren't brave, we weren't special. We were just too stubborn to cry, too human to give up hope. Tell them we died together and we died laughing. Porter crawled back to his crew. He settled between Lisa and Jake, his head resting against theirs. Someone made a weak joke that the recording couldn't quite capture, but it heard the response. Laughter, quiet, breathless, but unmistakable. 12 humans laughing one last time. Then silence. The recording continued for several more minutes, showing the still forms of the crew. They had arranged themselves almost protectively around each other. Even in death, they were a team. Stood frozen in the mess hall, the same room where the humans had spent their final hours. Was openly weeping. Even, usually stoic, seemed shaken. They knew they were dying, whispered. They had hours to prepare, and they chose to spend those hours laughing. What kind of species does that? Didn't have an answer. He looked around the mess hall, imagining those final hours. 12 humans, surrounded by death, choosing joy instead of despair. Captain's voice came through the communication link. I'm detecting something on the sensor logs. The Harrison's emergency beacon. It was activated on day 87. I know, said quietly. Captain Porter activated it at the end. Yes, sir, but according to the ship's records, that beacon transmitted for 2 more weeks, long after the crew died. Felt a chill. How is that possible? The beacon had an independent power supply. It continued signaling even as the ship drifted. Sir, according to the trajectory data and communication logs, a passing trader vessel detected the signal 3 weeks after the crew died. The implications hit like a physical blow. Pull up the rescue response data, now. The information appeared on his display. A trader had detected the beacon. They had reported it to Federation authorities. But the response time calculations estimated the Harrison's crew would have been long dead by the time rescuers arrived. So no one came, sat alone in the Harrison's mess hall long after his crew had returned to the silent wind. He needed time to think, to process what he had witnessed. Around him, the ghosts of 12 humans seemed to linger in the quiet air. He accessed the ship's database one more time. He needed to check something that had been bothering him since he arrived. When he found it, his blood ran cold. The cargo manifest listed personal effects for each crew member. Standard items, photos, letters, small mementos from home. He pulled up the inventory of what they had found in the crew quarters. Photos of families, letters written but never sent, children's drawings saved in protective sleeves, a wedding ring on a chain, a pressed flower from Earth, small treasures that spoke of rich, full lives cut short. In Captain Porter's quarters, found something that made him understand the man's final message. A folder labeled Private Logs, recordings that weren't part of the official ship records. He played the first one. Porter sat alone in his quarters late at night. His confident mask was gone. His hands shook as he spoke. Private Log, Day 20. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not prepared for this. How do you lead a crew when you have no good options? When every choice leads to death? I'm supposed to be strong for them. I'm supposed to have answers, but I'm just guessing and hopping and praying that I don't get them all killed. More recordings showed the same pattern. Porter terrified and doubting, alone in his quarters, but never in front of his crew. He bore that burden by himself so they wouldn't have to. Private Log, Day 45. Danny told a joke today that made everyone laugh so hard that Amy snorted water out of her nose. For 10 minutes we weren't a dying crew on a doomed ship. We were just friends having lunch. That's when I understood. My job isn't to save them. I can't. The universe has already decided. My job is to make sure they don't die in fear. My job is to help them stay human until the end. Close the files. He finally understood what he was looking at. Not just logs from a doomed crew, a lesson about what it meant to be human. He activated his communication link. Prepare to receive the Harrison. We're towing it to the nearest Federation station. Sir sounded confused. Standard protocol is to log the coordinates and file a report. The ship is a derelict. This is not a standard situation. We're taking it with us. Captain, if I may ask, why? The crew is dead. The ship is beyond repair. What value does it have? Looked around the mess hall one last time. Because the galaxy needs to see this. They need to understand what we discovered here. He returned to the silent wind and ordered a full stop of their exploration mission. The Harrison would be carefully attached to their vessel and towed to Federation Central Command. But first, there was something he needed to do. He ordered his crew to preserve every log, every recording, every piece of evidence of what these humans had endured. He had the data to multiple secure systems. He made sure nothing would be lost. Then he gathered his crew in their own mess hall, and a dozen others looked at him with questions in their eyes. I need you all to understand what we found, began. For years, we've classified species by their planet's danger rating. We look at gravity, atmosphere, predators, natural disasters. We assign numbers. Class 1 for gentle worlds, Class 2 for moderate danger, Class 3 for. He pulled up an image of Earth. The blue-green planet hung in space, looking deceptively peaceful. Earth earned its Class 3 rating honestly. It has extreme weather, deadly predators, disease, and a history of mass extinctions. The humans evolved in a world constantly trying to kill them. We thought that made them physically dangerous. Strong, fast, adaptable. He played the final recording again. The sound of humans laughing in their last moments filled the room. We were wrong. Physical danger isn't what makes truly dangerous. It's this. It's the ability to look at certain death and laugh. It's the refusal to surrender hope even when hope is impossible. It's the capacity to turn horror into humor and despair into defiance. Spoke up, her voice soft. They weaponized joy. They made laughter into a survival tool. Exactly, agreed. For millions of years, Earth tried to kill them, so they learned to laugh at death itself. They developed psychological resilience that goes beyond anything we've encountered. They literally cannot be broken because breaking would require them to stop being human. Gestured with his four arms. But Captain, they did die. How is that resilience? How is that unbreakable? Had thought about this question for hours. They died on their own terms. They chose how to spend their final hours. Even death couldn't make them afraid. Even extinction couldn't steal their humanity. And now we're taking their story to the Federation. Their laughter will outlive them. If that's not victory over death, I don't know what is. He pulled up the crew manifest, showing photos of all 12 humans. Young faces full of life and hope, taken before the mission began. These 12 people were explorers, scientists, ordinary humans doing a routine survey mission. They weren't soldiers. They weren't specially trained for this kind of disaster. Yet they survived for 87 days against impossible odds through nothing but creativity, determination, and laughter. He paused, letting that sink in. Now imagine what a trained human military could do. Imagine human engineers given proper resources. Imagine human diplomats, artists, scientists, all carrying this same unbreakable spirit. That's what Earth represents. That's what Class 3 really means. Who had been skeptical from the start spoke carefully. Captain, are you saying we should fear humans? No, I'm saying we should understand them. Earth is barely known in Federation space. We've had minimal contact. Most species don't even know humans exist. But that's changing. Eventually, Earth will join the galactic community, and when that happens, the galaxy needs to be prepared. He gestured at the Harrison, visible through the viewport. This ship is a monument to human resilience. Every failed system, every makeshift repair, every drop of blood on those walls tells a story. It's a story the Federation Council needs to hear. Over the next several days, the Silent Wind towed the Harrison toward Federation space. Spent that time compiling a comprehensive report. He included every log, every recording, every piece of data. He wrote detailed analysis of human psychology, human problem-solving, and human social bonds. He titled his report, First Contact Through Aftermath, Understanding Humanity Through the Harrison Incident. As they approached the Federation Central Command Station, recorded his own final log about the experience. Captain's log, commanding, we discovered a Class 3 vessel designated Harrison. We expected to find a cautionary tale about the dangers of deep space exploration. Instead, we found something that will change how the galaxy views humanity forever. He looked at the damaged ship outside his window. We found 12 ordinary people who did something extraordinary. They faced the universe's cruelty with laughter. They chose joy over fear. They remained human until their final breath. The Harrison's crew didn't fail. They showed us what are really capable of. Not just survival, but thriving in the face of extinction. Not just endurance, but maintaining culture and community even as they died. He paused, choosing his words carefully. Humanity will join the galactic community eventually. When they do, they'll bring this same spirit, this same unbreakable will, this same capacity for laughing at death. Some will fear them for it. I choose to admire them. The report reached Federation Central Command 3 weeks later. The Council reviewed the logs in stunned silence. They watched human after human laugh in the face of disaster. They saw ordinary people become extraordinary through sheer force of will. The Harrison was placed in the Federation Museum of Galactic History. It became the most visited exhibit within a month. People from 100 worlds came to see the vessel and to hear the recordings of humans laughing. Earth was contacted formally for the first time. Federation ambassadors arrived with the Harrison's crew logs and a simple message. We found your people. We heard their laughter. We understand now. The human government was confused at first. A survey ship had been lost years ago, presumed destroyed. Now aliens were returning it with talk of laughter and psychological weapons, and changing the galaxy's understanding of humanity. But when they listened to the logs, they understood. 12 ordinary humans had become ambassadors for their entire species. They had taught the galaxy what it meant to be human without ever meeting an alien. Their laughter echoed across the stars, and the galaxy would never look at humanity the same way again. Years later, when Earth formally joined the Galactic Federation, the ceremony was held on the Harrison. Thousands of species gathered on that patched, beloved ship. They stood in the mess hall where 12 humans had spent their final hours laughing. The Federation Chancellor spoke simple words. "This ship taught us that Class 3 doesn't mean dangerous. It means undefeatable. Welcome to the Federation, humanity. We've been waiting for you. And we've been learning from you." The human ambassador, a woman who had lost a brother on the Harrison, spoke through tears. They would have loved this. Jake, Danny, Lisa, Chris, Amy, and the others. They set out to explore the unknown. They didn't know they were also building a bridge between worlds. They were just trying to survive with dignity and humor and hope. She smiled, the same defiant smile that had appeared in so many logs. They taught the galaxy to laugh at death. That's the greatest gift humanity can share. Not our technology, not our strength, but our refusal to be broken. Our insistence on finding joy even in the darkest places. The ceremony ended with a moment of silence, followed by something unprecedented in Federation history. Thousands of beings from hundreds of worlds, all laughing together in honor of 12 humans who had shown them how. And somewhere in the void of space, in the region where the Harrison had drifted, the echo of that laughter seemed to linger forever. They had assumed a vessel with no life signs wasn't worth the resources for a rescue operation. Standard procedure. Looked at the still forms in the recording, frozen in their final moments of laughter. They had died 3 weeks before help would have arrived. But if they had known help was coming, could they have held on? Could their impossible resilience have carried them just a little further? He would never know, and that unknowing would haunt him forever. Every joke was a weapon against fear. Every moment of absurd humor was the crew refusing to let the universe break them. They weren't laughing despite their situation. They were laughing to survive it. And somewhere deep in his understanding, realized that this psychological resilience made humans far more dangerous than mere physical strength ever could. A species that could laugh at death itself was a species that could never be truly defeated. Day 39, I've been awake for 60 hours straight. I can't remember what real food tastes like. My everything hurts, and I just realized I've been talking to this panel like it's a person. He patted the scorched metal. But you know what? We're still here, we're still fighting, and that's got to count for something. As the alien crew continued their investigation, the truth became clear. These humans weren't laughing because they were crazy or broken. They were laughing because it kept them sane. It kept them human. It kept them alive. And that realization made understand that Earth's classification as a Class 3 might be more significant than anyone in the Federation had realized. And how different creatures faced death. Most showed fear, despair, or resignation. He had never seen anyone laugh at their own doom. "Keep recording everything," he ordered. "We're going to figure out what kind of species laughs in the face of death, and why." As more logs played, showing more impossible humor amid obvious catastrophe, began to realize they had discovered something far more significant than a derelict ship. They had found evidence of a species unlike any the galaxy had encountered. And that discovery filled him with both fascination and a deep, growing unease.